Welcome to Around the Empire. I'm your host, Joanne Leon. Around the Empire podcast, listener-supported independent media. Pitch in if you can, patreon.com/aroundtheempire, paypal.me/aroundtheempirepod. Please like, share, and subscribe on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/aroundtheempire. Margaret Kimberley joins us today for a special Halloween episode where we discuss the prospects for a ghoulish rematch in 2020 between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. We mainly focus on Hillary Clinton, recent events, and the various signs that she's considering making another run for president and why that would be a disaster. We recorded this on October 29th, 2019. Margaret Kimberley returns to the show, speaking just today from New York. Hi, Margaret. It's great to talk with you again.
Hello, it's good to be back.
Yeah, and today we're going to make this like a Halloween special about a ghoulish rematch between Trump and Hillary. Margaret wrote an article just a few days ago about that subject, about whether or not she's going to run. But, before we start on that, I just want to mention two things. First, I saw that Black Agenda Report just had the 13th anniversary. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Dedicated to the late Bruce Dixon, which, I was very sad to see that he passed. But yeah, I'm a long-time lurker there. And I've learned a lot. And there's one time in particular that I have to really thank you guys for, because remember when the Libya war started, and at that point in time, I was pretty deep into the Democratic blogs like Daily Kos and those places that I no longer visit at all. And I was furious about that. I actually was like in North Carolina at that point in time. There were all these like helicopters in the sky, or you could tell something was going on. And then, I got the news that we started shooting missiles at them and all of that. And I was really, really against it. But I was isolated. There was hardly anyone among the, the Democrats in that blog community who were against it. And so I spent a lot of time over at Black Agenda, and not only, did I find some common ground there, but I learned a lot too. Like there were a lot of things I didn't know about Libya or about Gaddafi until I read there. So I have to really thank you guys for that. And a lot of other things, I just, I learn a lot.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. It's, it's a funny thing, what you're talking about, this phenomenon of people allegedly being anti-war. I think one of the big reasons people were against the Iraq war is that it was Bush's war, and it was more anti-Republican feeling than anti-war feeling. And also Bush sent American troops. That always increases opposition. When Obama said he was only against dumb wars, he meant wars that would become unpopular. So what he did was they used proxies to destroy Libya. The jihadists and Al-Qaeda offshoots, and Al-Qaeda is supposed to be Satan, right? But not when it comes to doing U.S. dirty work.
Yeah, funny.
And the rest of NATO, and they all conspired. They got this vote in the UN to the UN Security Council, a no-fly zone resolution. So they told lies about Gaddafi, about human rights. And remember, they said the troops were given Viagra, and so it was a confluence of really horrible things that happened. But that, something, when things like that happen, you find out who is serious and who is not. And we always say that we are opposed to U.S. interventions. The U.S. does not have the right to decide who runs Libya. Even if it was true that they were giving the troops Viagra, the U.S. still doesn't have a right to destroy a country. So you're welcome for that, and for giving us a shout out.
Yeah. And also, I just saw on your Twitter feed that on November 19th, they're doing an event with Lee Camp, Aaron Mate, and Max Blumenthal on propaganda. So yes. I was really excited to see that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's 3 weeks from, like, I think that's, yeah, 3 weeks from today. And the group, the Big Apple Coffee Party, they call themselves, and they sponsor events like this. And I appeared at one a couple of years ago. And it should be very interesting. I respect all of the people who will be joining me on this panel with Aaron Mate, who I know. I've met Max Blumenthal, but I don't know him as well as I know Aaron Mate. Lee Camp, I have not met yet. They invited me on the show, and on his show Redacted tonight on RT, and I wasn't able to go. So I have a great respect for them, and I think this will be a great evening. So it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna see if I can go to that. I just got tickets to a Jimmy Dore show for the first time.
Oh, very nice. I missed him. He was in Brooklyn, and I completely missed it. And
Uh
by the time I found out about it, there's no tickets left. So don't be like me. So good. Good for you.
no,
That should be.
I did the same thing in one in New York. I was gonna go to that and it was already sold out. So he's coming to Philadelphia, which is much
Hmm.
easier for me to get to.
Yeah.
And I'm just right across the river. So he added a night and I did get some tickets. So I'm pretty excited about that. But it's the night before this, and I have to see if I could get on the train to get up to New York for this one. I might try to finagle it because I'd really like to see it. But
Yeah. I would like to. I'd like to meet you. That would be great. But that sounds like a lot, also. So these days,
yeah,
I'm very much into paying attention to my limits. So if you if you can't make it, I
I
understand.
know I'm stubborn like that. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
admit what they are, but like they really are.
Yeah.
they're they're definitely there now, so that's a bummer. But we did meet that one time in Washington very briefly at
That's
that.
true. We did.
But yeah, it'd be great to see you again and to I've talked to Aaron and Max a lot, but I've not met them in person, nor Lee Camp either. So anyway, I'm gonna see if I can figure that out. But
Okay.
so yeah, let's talk about your article. But for the audience, there links to all these things will be in the show notes. And the title of this one is "The Return of Hillary Clinton." And the first line is, "It's not clear if smear-mongering Clinton is running for president or just fleeing reality." And you had written this not too long after her attack on Tulsi, which I
Mm-hmm.
have a new view about, by the way, which I'll tell you about later. But
Okay.
yeah, so if you want, let's just talk about what you laid out there.
Sure. Well, she never did really go away.
No.
It's actually very sad, really, even though I don't like her. I don't have sympathy for her, but she schemed for years, for decades, to become president. And if you go back to Bill Clinton's campaign in 1992, and he said, oh, supposedly jokingly, you'll get two for the price of one. And then I realized it was no joke. They had a
Yeah.
plan all along for her to become president too. And they shoehorned her into the Senate seat in New York. She didn't even live in New York.
Huh.
She decided she wanted the seat. Moynihan was retiring. Democrats just, bowed down to Bill Clinton, and she became our senator. And it was supposed to be her turn when Obama ended up getting the nomination. It was very close, but so close that he didn't have enough delegates to get the nomination, so he had to offer her a role, in that case, Secretary of State. And then it was supposed to be her turn in 2016 after Obama's second term. And she thought that Trump would be easier to beat. And she promoted him. I mean, it's one of the things WikiLeaks revealed. She felt that she would have the easiest time with him. The corporate media went along. They were also getting ratings by covering him. He got billions of dollars in free advertising, in part because she thought it was a good idea. And then lo and behold, and I believe the problem with her emails, now they're trying to diminish it as if it was nothing, because the investigation revealed there was no improper use of her emails, but she deleted thousands of them. We don't
I
know what
know.
was in them. And the fact that the Secretary of State, she never used the State Department server. She kept the server in her house. which meant she was hiding something. And I believe she was doing the business of the Clinton Foundation. It was trying to hide it. She had a serious legal problem. And I believe that took more of her attention than the campaign. She's also not a good politician. So she raised more than $1 billion. And she got these technocrats to tell her she had it in the bag and she didn't have to do much. And she didn't bother campaigning or even getting a get out the vote effort in those states, which Obama left nothing to chance. And I just assumed that they would do the same thing.
Yeah.
But she did 80,000 votes in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And I don't know how you raise $1 billion and you can't get 80,000 more votes. But if you don't do the get out the vote effort, if you don't protect, especially Black votes from voter suppression and vote theft, then you're going to lose. And I think the enormity of her defeat was something she never got over. And Democrats just indulged her. I'm not a Democrat anymore, by the way. I'm a registered Green Party member. But the Democrats have a bad habit of treating politics like it's some kind of a religion. And instead of saying, wait a minute, you mean to tell me you had the corporate media on your side, you had raised more money than he did, and Trump is the one who's the president? And instead of rising up in anger, they bonded with her. And of course, and she pushed the whole Russiagate narrative, and they started that on election night, that she lost because of Russian interference. And that was easy. And I think Trump's victory was a traumatic event, really, for many people.
Right.
And so it's comforting to think that there was something not, quite right, that there was something sinister going on. And this woman who was an enormous failure, who proceeded to piss on the person who should be the front runner, Bernie Sanders. I mean, he already ran. He came in second. He would, in ordinary times, he'd be the front runner, period. But she, because she was so angry, and I don't know if she really believes it or not, I don't know, there's nothing about him running that kept her from winning in November. But there are millions of people who blame him. She cast aspersions on him. His loyal supporters haven't changed any, but there are huge chunks of the Democratic Party who are mad at him. She can't be president, but she's going to keep him from being president.
Right.
And she's just a poison. She's an absolute poison. So now the 2020 election is upon us, and Joe Biden fills her spot as the neoliberal, not really Democrat person who rich people and corporations want to give money to. But he's a mess. He never was very smart. And now it shows between the bad facelift and the dumb remarks and the not knowing where he is and his confusion. He's showing his weaknesses, and she thinks she can step in. And she needs to be told no. That would be absolute. She had her chance. She had 2 chances. And that means you can't run again. So, but I think she wants to. And I think she'd still get some support. And there isn't any one person. The one person who would really catch on is Bernie Sanders, the person who's anathema to the Democratic Party establishment. So she thinks she can join the race, but that will be a disaster and Trump will win. Absolutely win.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be disaster all over again. And, there are all kinds of signs that, like, I really didn't think that she would do it again. I figured that well, first of all, you mentioned that she's a schemer. I mean, I had always heard that about her. I mean, I heard all during the 90s, I used to hear what all the different, particularly the Republicans, they used to say all kinds of things about the Clintons, which I was not a big fan of theirs, but I know I defended them in the 90s. I thought what was done there was really shitty. So she's definitely, some of the things that I heard back then, I'm now reconsidering whether I should have ignored all of them. 2 of the 2 main ones, the one being, just endless scheming. And the other one is the fact that people fear them because they are obsessed with revenge. And I think we just saw 3 years of that. I think it started immediately, and I think the chaos that we've seen for the past 3 years have been largely orchestrated by Hillary and her cronies, if you would, because she had really almost all of the institutions were backing her in that election
Yes.
too. And it was crazy the fact that she didn't do the ground game. And I'm not too far from Pennsylvania, and there were so many Trump signs, and
Mm-hmm.
like I think I may have seen two Hillary yard signs in the whole time that during that campaign, and I couldn't believe it. They didn't even bother to put out yard signs. I mean,
Well,
the most basic
that's
things.
absolutely, and that is an indication of a get out the vote effort. And it's the most basic, the easiest thing to do. I mean, you have to have an organization and spend money and get people, but that is an indication that you don't have a get out the vote effort. And I remember when Obama ran twice, I know people here in New York who went to Pennsylvania for get out the vote efforts, and I didn't hear of anybody doing that. And that's because she didn't do it.
Yeah,
And it made a difference. And it's one thing to think, let's say you're not crazy about someone, you're like, I don't know, I don't like Trump, but I don't like Hillary that much, I don't know. But if somebody knocks on your door and says, remember Tuesday's election day, and let me tell you about Hillary, and we can't take anything for granted, or whatever, then you have somebody who now is more likely to actually go to the polls. And that's why, and this is politics 101. But she was so sure of herself, and she's a horrible politician. She may be an intelligent person in some other way, but she's an awful politician. And if even if people came to you and said the polls show you winning, a politician would say, "That's nice, but I want to run up the score. I want to win by the same margin Obama won by. I want to whip Trump's ass. I want to leave no doubt that I have a mandate." Something, that's what a politician would do, but she isn't. And she was married to Bill Clinton, but apparently didn't learn anything from him. I can't imagine him letting that happen. But and also Trump stripped the Republican Party down to its barest essence as the white people's party, and they even Republicans didn't think he was going to win. But it was, and I think it was traumatic also because I was just thinking about this. His victory, this unexpected victory, proved that a lot of establishment institutions and individuals don't always know what they're talking about. So the New York Times, I don't know if you've seen it, it was a Twitter post from exactly 3 years ago, from like October 20 something in 2016. And it showed Hillary Clinton with a 92% chance of winning.
yeah,
So the New York Times didn't know what it was talking about. The corporate media didn't know what they were talking about. The people who endorsed her didn't know what they were talking about. So it really just uh, turned our perceptions upside down. But the remedy for that is not to stick with the person who failed.
I know.
It's to ask what the hell happened, and to ask hard questions, and to say to the Democrats, what the hell did you do, and how are you going to promise us you don't do it again? And she's just so spiteful. If she wanted to stay in politics, if she wanted to keep her hand in, then she should be the peacemaker. She should be the one who brings the party together. But she doesn't have that in her. So she and the rest of the Democratic Party establishment, who screwed up and lost to Trump in the first place, all they are doing now is trying to stop Bernie Sanders. That is what the Democratic Party, everything they do is about stopping him. They got all these people to run. They were, I think it was two things. They weren't sure who would catch on.
Right.
And also they're trying to make sure that even if he wins in the primaries, he doesn't have enough delegates at the convention to get the nomination. And so on the second ballot, the super delegates will pick somebody else
Yeah, it
and
definitely looks that way.
put Trump back into office. So that's my
Right.
prediction.
Yeah, I think that's true. And well, Tulsi Gabbard actually said that some of those candidates are her proxies, which is another interesting thing. But you know what she said in a recent interview in the past couple of weeks? She just made a vague reference. She said, well, a lot of some funny things happened in my election, but that won't happen again. So I thought, oh my God, she's going to run. She's actually going to run.
Yeah.
And all these things have happened since then, which I'll tell you what I have. I noted them down. All the things that changed my mind and made me think she actually is going to run. So first of all, I think she wants a rematch. I mean, that goes without saying, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, Now this impeachment thing, you mentioned that
Right.
the Democratic Party's working hard to make sure Bernie doesn't win, but they have a two-pronged thing. They also have this impeachment thing going. Really, you
Hmm.
could just say continuing from
Right.
the day after the election. They started trying to take Trump down, and they have never stopped. And I think when the Mueller report sort of backfired,
Hmm.
that was clear. I think that was a roadmap for impeachment that was supposed to go. You
It
know,
was, yeah.
yeah, and I think that's a bit of the revenge thing too. Oh, let's do what happened to Bill in the 90s. Let's take those recommendations from the report, the obstruction, and let's just roll them right into an impeachment effort. So, but anyway, that didn't work out. Clearly, after Mueller's appearance, that whole thing had collapsed. So they had to come up with a
Yes.
new idea, but to stay on the same timeline. I think the impeachment was always planned for just before the primaries. But this new scheme that they have, it's actually a double whammy. It hurts both Biden and Trump, right? Because they
Yes,
chose to use the
absolutely.
Ukraine story. So you have to give them credit, Margaret. If they did that, if this was Hillary's scheme, and I really do think that she and Bill just sit at home and thinking, plan this stuff. I don't know,
I think
but
she does. I think it's her more than him. And there are people who said he either didn't want her to run, or he tried to talk to her and other people and say, I think there are things you're missing out there. But she didn't listen to him. So I
yeah.
think it's more her. As far as impeachment, first of all, Trump is so stupid. He handed this to them. I think it's hilarious. His disastrous testimony was on July 20th, and that took all the air out of the
It did.
Russiagate balloon. But the next day, July 25th, is the day he makes this stupid phone call to the Ukrainian president. Now, I think what he said improper. It was inappropriate. I don't know if it's illegal, but there's no quid pro quo. The Ukrainians got their weapons and they didn't do anything Trump asked them to do. They
Yeah.
didn't investigate Biden and they still got what they wanted. So all this talk about a quid pro quo is ridiculous. And it's kind of a Russiagate 2.0. They conflate things and inflate things and give things greater importance. I mean, think of all the things we were told about Russiagate. Michael Cohen went to Prague. Well, he didn't. There was like a message from Trump's office to a Russian bank. Well, there was. Um, I could go on, and the meeting with the Russian lawyer, which was mostly, but the woman got the meeting, and all she wanted to talk about was sanctions. So it was, the fact that Trump tried to build in Moscow for decades. He started when it was still the Soviet Union and failed. So, but it's similar to this. Somebody said that he knows there was a quid pro quo, and the dumb, what is the acting chief of staff had a bad press conference and said, "Well, get over it. This is what people do." And they said, "Aha, that's a quid pro quo." And I'm like, "No, it's not."
It's
So,
true. That's what they do.
so it's the
What can we do
same.
with sanctions? We're constantly leaning on
I
other countries.
I
I mean,
know, I know, and and only Trump would get involved in a mess like this because other presidents, the president is not the one who makes that phone call. Somebody
yeah.
else makes a phone call to not to the other president, but to someone else and says, "This is what we want you to do." That's how it usually works. But Trump is so vain and he can't take himself out of the picture,
And you can't trust
that
anybody.
he doesn't trust anybody. He should know not to trust himself, frankly. So the president gets deniability, but he walks right into it and gives them a gift, even though he had just. But they are going to string this out. I don't think they want to remove him. They will do what the Republicans did with Clinton. It's the actually same plan. You impeach someone, you put enough dirt on them. In this case, that Trump again will be hurt when he runs. but they don't want him removed. And and it's a funny thing. You notice that when he sticks to the neoliberal imperialist script, then he gets support. People spend all this time counting how many times he lied. Trump lied 37 times last week, and then he has this cockamamie story. That's my next column about killing al-Baghdadi in
Oh,
Syria, and everybody just goes along with it. And I'm like, excuse me, you cannot believe this. But I think he still has a chance. I really do, because the Democrats are, mostly because they're so hell bent on stopping Bernie Sanders, the person who would definitely, positively beat Trump, because he would keep all the Democrats. You need someone who's going to build excitement, who's going to bring new people in, and Sanders can do that. And people want what he's talking about. Everything he's talking about, people want. And even people who say, I don't know about him raising taxes because Medicare for all. If you had Medicare for all, they'd use it. No question. They would. They wouldn't turn down forgiving their college loan debt. No way. But they would throw enough dirt at him, and this canard about electability. They decide that this or that person is electable, and Democrats are terrified of of Trump winning again. So anyone, if you say often enough, and that's propaganda, this one's more electable. Some of them are still trying to say Joe Biden is electable. He's already fallen flat on his face 10 times. So that's where we are now. It's
yeah.
very, very sad. But as I said before, I'm green, and we don't, there are people running to serious candidates, and we'll see what happens. I'm committed to building a left party in this country. Even someone like Sanders, who's good on domestic policies, when it comes to foreign policy, he's
Yeah.
talking about, this one, Maduro's a dictator, and Assad must go, and he parrots the same crap.
The same Russia, Russia, Russia.
Yes, Russia did interfere, and I can't do that anymore. I can't vote for the war party. We need to build a new party, and I believe you can resolve the issue of we do have a system that's hostile to third parties and relegates them to spoiler status. My response is, well, get rid of one of the parties. We need to be, the second one of the two parties. So we have to start somewhere, and we have to look closely at what all the things Democrats have done. They have the image of being progressive and inclusive, and they don't live up to it. They make war just as much. They believe in austerity just as much. They're not outwardly racist. Yes, you would have judicial nominees who are more to my liking, but I can't think of a whole lot else that they do. The environmentalists, they're phony. Obama signed the last climate agreement, which allows the world temperature to rise. It's phony. I wish we had more time to talk about it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I mean, the perfect time to build a replacement for the Democratic Party, even if it was just something light, just something better than this party, the perfect time to do it was the day after Hillary Clinton lost.
exactly.
And there were a lot of people out there calling for that, myself included. But there were, uh, well, that's a whole nother story. There were a lot of other people who I have some serious doubts about their intentions. People I debated about it, and they're like, no, they're still got to, take it down from the inside, and it's just a fool's errand at this point.
Oh,
But
absolutely, absolutely. There should have been mass revulsion against the Democrats after Hillary Clinton lost.
yeah,
Uh,
and to some extent there still is that conflict has not been resolved. It's just been
no, no.
distracted by Russiagate and everything else, and now about well, we just have to get rid of Trump. And but let me just give you a couple more things of why I think why I now think she is going to run.
Hmm.
So the other thing is Biden in 2016, in the fall of 2016, after 9/11, when Hillary had her famous collapse,
Yes.
Biden was going to step in the race at that point, and Donna Brazile has now said that. So by stepping in for Biden in essence. That's another way Hillary can get her revenge in this Ukraine gate thing. And Hunter, I mean, that's gonna beat him up. He
Mm-hmm.
already had problems, but that's gonna, I think, do him in. Anyway, she did this book tour. Here's the obvious thing. This book tour, the way it's timed. And then her attack on Hillary. At first, I'm sorry, on Tulsi. Hillary's attack on Tulsi. First, I thought that was just her, the fact that she can't help herself. She just blurted that out or whatever. But now that I think she's running, I think it was a preemptive strike on Tulsi because she
Mm-hmm.
knows that Tulsi's going to go after her warmongering. And so I now think it was that. It was, a double strike actually on Tulsi and Jill Stein. The other thing is that the other day I got clobbered by all these Hill bots. They're back on Twitter. I
Yes.
swear to God. And they're ridiculous. And now they put these like stupid gifs on their tweets as if they're sort of an upgraded Hillbot. They're still just as bad. Um, so she's clearly worried about a third party run, and she's trying to, get ahead of that. And then when Tulsi said that some of those primary candidates were Hillary proxies, I thought, well, that's interesting. Maybe they're set to either step down when Hillary steps in, all hail the Queen, or maybe they're just set to turn over their delegates to Hillary as a
Well, it's
guarantee.
interesting. I've thought about that. It's like, who told Klobuchar she had a chance to be president? I
What?
mean, it's just or Buttigieg. I'm like,
Yeah.
really, dude? He's like the mayor of Nowheresville, and I'm like, how? I mean, he has all the right credentials, Ivy League, military, but um, I don't know, why half of these people are in the race. And I think they're helping stop Bernie. I think they're encouraged to run. And the other thing is they have not decided who is the best person to do it. So they thought it would be Kamala Harris. She hasn't caught on. So they keep coming up with new people, and they're just hoping to, and they're flailing about because they won't leave it alone. And all they want to do is stop Bernie Sanders. That's their goal. And in doing so, they will steal it from him, but they'll also put Trump back in the White House.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that was a preemptive strike against her to smear her as a Russian asset and get her out of the race. They'll pretty soon they'll say Bernie is a Russian asset,
Yeah.
and
Yes, they will.
so I think you're right, but she wants to get back in, but this should
Um,
be the Civil War. This should, Trump said something stupid about a civil war and everybody loses it and he's a fascist and blah blah. And um, we have a fascist country. That's why I'm sneering. I'm not sneering about fascism. I just don't think he's the one who embodies it, and I don't think he's this big aberration that people like to pretend.
Let me tell
Uh,
you one more thing
sure, go
real
ahead.
quick before we end up. The other thing I saw today is that, you mentioned that Hillary's kind of getting that email thing cleaned up so that she has an official ruling on that. But there's also, I guess it was today, the DNC lawsuit that I think it turned into a class action lawsuit. The Becks
Right.
brought that, and then they filed an appeal. Well, that appeals court just threw it out also, and they said they didn't have proper standing, and they had some other reasons why. They acknowledged that. I had a quote in here. But I'll put a link to this in the show notes. But the way a Florida newspaper spun it, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz is, has a lot of influence in Florida, was the headline that they put in there was basically that a court ruled that the DNC had not rigged the primary in Clinton's favor, which is just totally not true. And it's not even what the lawsuit said, but that's just the way they spun the headline. But so now that lawsuit is out of the way too, so you don't have to worry about that. I think that was my last thing as to
Mm-hmm.
the things that I think indicate that she is going to run, and I'm going to have to like take a break from politics for a while if she does, because I
I,
can't do that again.
I'm just gonna have to get some popcorn and sit back and laugh, and it's not gonna be pretty.
No,
It's
no.
so unnecessary. She's a poison, and I mean that. I don't think I'm exaggerating. Um, and but you're right about these people who've just become so unhinged, and I think Russiagate did that. The way people were propagandized and manipulated, people have lost their minds. And the Democrats have a lot to answer for in pushing that. It was a fraud, that pushing that fraud on the public. And you can't put the genie back into the bottle because people have these emotions and these feelings. And, then Trump, he's an idiot, and he, raises all these issues again because he can't leave it alone. I mean, it is suspicious. I'll just say one more thing. There's no proof that Russia or that anybody hacked the DNC computers. There's no independent corroboration. CloudStrike, the Democrats' consultant, they're the only ones who said that they were hacked by the Russians. Nobody else has seen their servers. Mueller didn't bother to look at them, which I think is interesting. But Trump is so dumb. Instead of that's all he has to say about the servers, not that they're in Ukraine or whatever the hell else. I'm like, dude, you can't even get it right. So everything we're told about Russiagate is almost everything is a lie, and they've ruined people's lives. There's no reason for Paul Manafort to be in jail. Turns out he's a crook. He cheated on his taxes. It's got nothing to do with Russia. He worked for someone. He actually advised the Ukrainian president, the former president, to move closer to the EU. There was nothing pro-Russian. This Russian young lady, Maria Butina.
Yeah.
It was a weird story. This Russian gun nut who, thought she wanted to cozy up to the NRA and make Russia a gun-loving nation or whatever. She wasn't a spy. She didn't work for the Russian government. It's all part of the propaganda to make the Russiagate narrative keep going and going. So that's what we're left with. We're left with a population that was traumatized and then lied to, and this is what we've ended up with.
Right, exactly. All right, well, I need to let you go. So anything else? Make sure people know where to find your work and how to support your work. You have a book coming up too, I just found out.
Yes. So blackagendareport.com. We publish every Wednesday. Wednesday is Black Agenda Report Day. I'm a contributor to a new book called In Defense of Julian Assange. And my first book, Prejudential, Black America and the Presidents, is going to be published in February.
Excellent. Okay. Hope to talk to you again. Actually hope to see you soon.
Yes, Margaret. Yes, I hope so.
And thank you so much.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Special thanks to Margaret Kimberley. Follow Margaret on Twitter at Freedom Ride Blog and find her work at blackagendareport.com. Around the Empire podcast is independent media. Listener supported, and your support is really important. Pitch in if you can, patreon.com/aroundtheempire or paypal.me/aroundtheempirepod. There are many ways to listen to the Around the Empire podcast. You can find it many places. Find it on any mobile podcast app or on the website aroundtheempire.com or on Patreon or on YouTube, youtube.com/aroundtheempire. And if you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave me some comments, send me some feedback via email, admin@aroundtheempire.com. Also follow on Twitter @aroundtheempire. And we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.